Everybody, it is the playoffs. That is right, playoffs. The playoffs start this weekend. We got to wrap up last week. These games are going to be something fierce. We've got it all for you tonight on the bottom line. What you think, Ed?
Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. It's the Bottom Line Podcast, and it starts now.
And that's the bottom line. Want a war? You're going to get one.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
We are back for another exciting week of the Bottom Line Podcast. And I got a co-host that the two of us are going to be flying duo this week because we're a little short, but we're not short on information, are we?
The skeleton crew this week. Chad's doing whatever Chad does. Eric's coaching. KJ's on vacation. He stays on vacation, but that's all right. You got the good guy over there to my left, and then you have me. So it yin and yang. It doesn't get no better than this.
Yeah, I got to go home back to Iowa this last weekend and for my dad's 90th birthday celebration. And I got the added pleasure of going to one of Eric's baseball games, and they ended up winning a really good game, 2-1. But got to see a couple of my great nephews play, and so I got some pictures that Amanda went into take picture mode during the game, and so she got some neat pictures together for me. So at the end of the show, I'll kind of give you a little glimpse into Eric's coaching baseball life. But until then, we probably better dive into it, huh?
Man, what a season. I can't believe it's regular season's already over. But to me, and I've seen a couple of negative comments, which you're always going to see out of spring football fans. But I think personally, the quality of football this year was really up there. I saw some comments on Facebook and X from people I've never seen before that said, hey, this UFL is pretty good. I need to pick a team. And one of the guys actually, Coach Beck responded to him and said done. And I think he private messaged him, and now the kid's an Orlando fan, and Coach Beck shared it. So some neat stuff, man. You're not seeing the negativity on ESPN anymore. You're seeing a lot of good feedback. I think it was maybe not attendance wise, but when it comes to viewership and actually growing the league and getting it more mainstream, I think it was a win this year. And we've still got these two playoff games this weekend, and then the championship game at Aldi Stadium in DC. It's going to be a wild finish. I can't wait for the playoffs. These four teams are. It's going to be some good football.
And as we saw with the Orlando situation, we can't say the league's not listening because they did the right thing and got the game moved, but we'll talk about that more later. Let's get into the recaps on the last week's games quick, and we will move on to bigger and better things. But the first game of the weekend kicked off under the Friday Night Lights. It was Dallas, who was on a 6-game losing streak, traveling to St. Louis. Who would have thought, huh? I mean, it
was not set up for St. Louis to win. I know they should have won. I get that, but it really didn't affect them playoffs wise whatsoever. They had already secured their home field and their seed, so to speak, and Dallas had been very close on a couple of those games, and it's kind of they went in there with it. We have nothing to lose mentality, and a couple of those turnovers really come back to bite St. Louis in the end.
Yeah, if Austin Reed ever had a bounce back game, it was this one. He went 15 for 26, only for 162 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns with a passer rating of 114.6. And then on the defensive side of the ball, holy cow, Dallas was able to sack Luis Perez 7 times.
Yeah.
Perez did lose some weight this season. He's a lot lighter.
Right.
I think it's a combination of he's just not that mobile, but it's another combination of the offensive line was not doing a good job of giving him protection. So that's alarming heading into their game coming up with Louisville. Luis went 18 for 29 for 274 yards and a touchdown, but 2 costly turnovers, 2 interceptions that were killers. Both of them when St. Louis was on the move, and I think both of them might have been in the red zone. So just
St. Louis, didn't they also have a fumble that lost in that game by a running back? Is that correct?
a fumble?
Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought they also had a fumble in that game.
I wouldn't doubt it. It was I didn't get to watch this game real close, but then I watched it a couple times afterwards on a replay. St. Louis's defense held Dallas to 2.7 yards a carry on 25 attempts.
I think they also had seven sacks, didn't they?
Yeah, Dallas had 7 sacks. St. Louis only had 4 sacks.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Wow.
when you say only 4 is still a pretty good performance. So
I remember Reed taking a beating in that game. I could have sworn it was more sacks because he took a beating.
it is it's the turnovers that killed St. Louis because
Yeah.
when you look at it, Dallas didn't have anybody over 40 yards receiving. On the other hand, and Dallas was held to 2.7 yards a carry, so on 25 rushing attempts. So they really didn't do that much on offense. It's just that St. Louis didn't do anything to help themselves, and St. Louis, McBride, 4 catches for 79 yards. Butler, 3 catches for 73 yards. Darby, 3 catches for 50 yards. So the stats were there. It was the untimely turnovers. Once again, it's just killing us. I mean, St. Louis had, again, Perez had 2 interceptions. But like you say, Brett, it was pretty much guaranteed number 2 seed, guaranteed a home game. But St. Louis didn't rest their players. I mean,
Right.
they were still trying to win the game. So hats off to Dallas. Dallas basically came in and took care of business. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
And it was a good quality game. I'm a defensive guy, so the poor quarterbacks, they probably don't like this, but I enjoyed. Man, they took an old school pummeling, especially Reed with. But Perez got sacked 7 times, but Reed just seemed like he got hit every drop back, and he was getting hammered.
Yeah, he definitely took some shots.
Yeah,
definitely took some shots.
And it was a better crowd in St. Louis. It was pushing 25, which was up from 21 the week before or whatever, the last home game. So that was promising. And I know the ratings came out and they were pretty good. So, I think it was a really good week of football to end the season, although pretty much everything, had been decided the week before.
Yeah, and what I've been seeing too is a lot of posts from Louisville. The fan base is active, and they're gearing up to come to St. Louis. So I love it. I think it's awesome. I'd love nothing more than to see a rivalry start up between St. Louis and Louisville.
Yeah.
Hell, let us play 2 times a year, guaranteed, home and away. And put us every Thursday night before the Kentucky Derby. I mean, I would love that, man. I'd be guaranteed a trip to Louisville once a year. I'd have so much bourbon downstairs. I'd have to get a whole another set of bookcases to hold it all. Let's move on to the next game because I'm sure Brett was ready to talk about this game. The next game, Birmingham went in needing a big win to even have a chance at the playoffs. And just as Brett suspected, Houston come into Birmingham. And I'll let you speak first, Brett, and then I've got some.
I'm not saying anything.
I've got some offensive stats or lack thereof that will blow your socks off. But I'll let you go first, Brett.
Man, that was really what I was expecting. And I'm not making excuses. I'm not happy. None of the Birmingham fan base is happy. But that being said, the 5 offensive linemen that Birmingham, well, actually, let me go back. Gonzalez was one of the guys that played with St. Louis for a couple of years. AJ drafted him, and he decided to go into coaching. So there goes one offensive lineman. So week 1, the 5 guys Birmingham started with, the 5 offensive linemen, every one of them was done for the season by week 8. And I'm sorry, I know that Houston was so borderline on so many games this year and had a good defense. It was not a good matchup for Birmingham Saturday. And in the first drive with both sides of the ball, I looked over at Marty and people around and I told him, I said, this is exactly what I'm expecting. And very disappointed. I'm proud of Houston, how they finished the season. I talked with Summerlin after the game in a post-game presser, and he's excited and wanting to be back next year and expects to be back next year. I also got a little info that I was digging for from Summerlin, and he wouldn't give me what I was looking for, but AJ did. Those guys are on a 2-year contract, and AJ absolutely expects to be back. The coaches are all supposed to meet with Rapoli, and I think David Dykman, Russ Brandon, and some other guys, probably the first or second week after the season. to see about some modifications they can do moving forward to improve the gameplay. And some of that is what AJ had complained about, and other coaches have complained about the previous 2 or 3 years, that they don't feel like they have quite enough players on their roster, especially if a certain position group has the injury issues like Birmingham's offensive line this year or our quarterback spot last year. I think we went through 7 quarterbacks last year, and there ain't no telling how many. I would imagine at least a dozen offensive linemen this year. So I think our rosters will probably go from 43 to 48 or 50 on game day next year, which I think is a positive thing. I know it's a little more expensive for the league, but do be looking out for that in the next month or so to get some news on that.
Yeah, I know Coach Neuheisel, in a couple of his pressers that I was in on earlier this year, he was really, really, really frustrated about the 50-man roster, but only having 45 active or 43 active players.
Yeah, on game day.
And, like you said, these players make the squad and they're on the payroll until they're not and made inactive. And so
Right.
you got to look these players in the eye and tell them they're not going to get a paycheck this week. And it's, it's kind of tough for that. Houston in this game, after looking at the quarterback stats, you would have thought, holy cow, Birmingham's in this game, because Plumlee, 11 for 28, 118 yards and an interception. Passer rating was 45.2, but they didn't need to throw the ball.
No.
Because their rushing attempts, 38 rushing attempts, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7.3 average per carry. They were just running fools. And so their total offense goes 390 yards versus Birmingham. That was 131 total yards for the game. They had DTR 112 yards passing with a touchdown, but their rush attempts, they only averaged like 2.6 yards a carry. So Birmingham, that was really their Achilles heel through most of the season, as they just could not generate an offense at all.
Well, and again, you give up 270 yards on the ground. I'm such a huge defensive guy. And I said before the season started, one position group I was a little worried about, but I was going to trust AJ. And what I say, the defensive line. And boy, that defensive line all year long, it was the same thing game after game after the game. On 3rd and long or 4th down, Birmingham could not get off the field. They could not make a play, and it was the same way in Week 10 as it's been all season long. They just could not generate enough pressure. I think, did Birmingham actually get a sack in that game? I know they got one late.
I just wrote down Houston's sacks. They had 3, but I didn't write down Birmingham's.
Right. From what I recall, Birmingham had 1 sack, but, that's 1 sack the last 2 games. I think them and Columbus were the 2 teams in the league that generated the least amount of pressure. And that's with, Wilkins getting hurt a couple weeks ago in Columbus, and Stone having a good season all year long in Columbus. I think he might have sat 1 game this year. But Birmingham just could not get off the field defensively. And, they could not generate the pressure. And Houston, look, that wasn't just bad tackling or whatever on those run plays. You could have driven a truck through those holes. To me, and I'll say this, Birmingham and AJ was booed off the field going into the tunnel at halftime. And that's the first time I've heard that. I've went to every home game in 5 years except for 1, which I think is around 34 is what I counted, something like that. And I've never heard that before. And to me, they absolutely deserved it. They earned it. You're professionals. You aren't kids. They had embarrassing performance after embarrassing performance after embarrassing performance at home this year. They had one pretty solid game at home this year, and the rest of the games were just it was bad football. And I know the last 2-3 games, the offensive line had a big part in that because they were so banged up. But moving forward, and I mentioned this to AJ, you saw the post-game presser. People in Alabama are very spoiled with their football. You know, probably 60, 70% of the fan base is Alabama fans. You know what we're used to. And then all of us are Birmingham Stallions fans. Made it to the playoffs all 4 years, 3 championships, and then we have a season like this. So, again, AJ said he's got a 2-year contract. He's not wanting to get back into politics. He's wanting to be back next year. So we'll see, but I'll be concerned if Skip's not back. I mean, I'm just trying to look. I know it was his first year, but again, you know, he was even asked in the post-game presser. I think it was Birmingham Sports that asked AJ about something to do with the defense. And, you know, my ears perked up. AJ said, you know, I didn't have any time. I ain't paid no attention to the defense because I was too busy trying to figure out who we could piece together out on the field for the offense. And you know me, Ed, I wanted to jump up and say, aha! That's exactly why I didn't want you hired in the first place, because you don't understand defense still wins championships. And you go in the playoffs right now, the 4 teams we're going to cover later, and they're the 4 best defenses in the league. I'm just saying, I don't know anything about football, AJ. You made that very clear. Us fans don't know, but...
And you probably know a few of the names on the defensive side of the ball that went unprotected this year heading into the season. Just comment on a few.
Well, you know, Carlos Davis was the big name. He had been with the team for, 4 years, 5 years. Now, Carlos is known to have some penalties. You know, you've seen him.
Yeah.
You know, Ricky Prohl picked him up.
Yeah.
But he had a hell of a season and run with the run game, stuff in that middle, and he also had, I think, about 6.5 sacks, and he had numerous hits on the quarterback. And you put him in the middle with Pita and Freeney on the other side, and then the other guys that you guys got, you're 6 deep on the defensive front. There was another Marvin Wilson that was with Birmingham for a couple of years. He was more of a run stuffer. He went unprotected. And, you know, I don't even know if anyone picked him up this season. Perrion Winfrey, you know, we didn't pick him up. He was with Birmingham last year, did a good job. Was with the Dallas Cowboys. They let him go, and he plays 1 game here and goes after AJ, which we'll see later on in the 4th and goal series. And AJ trades him, you know, or no, he ends up just cutting him because nobody wanted Perrion. Well, then I think Perrion played 2 games in Columbus, and they released him too. So I don't know what happened with Winfrey. We had another couple ends that ended up making it to NFL squads this year. But I knew watching the draft and every pick that AJ took, McFarland reared his ugly head because what do we know for the season? He's hell, but can he stay healthy? No, he cannot stay healthy. That's why he's not in the NFL. He might have played, 3 or 4 games this year. We had wide receiver on top of wide receiver on top of wide receiver, which to me, we could have absolutely traded one of those guys and got at least one more good body on the defensive side of the field. Then our best defensive lineman this year was, Bledsoe? And he was part of the DTR trade with Orlando. So it was hey, we were solid at linebacker, thank goodness. But, you know, message to AJ going forward, you're not, I don't care how many points you score, think you can score. You got to have a better defensive front than that. That was it was worse than what I thought it was going to be, and I was not optimistic about the deep front. But give Houston all the credit in the world. Depending on where they're at next year on their quarterback position, I think they're absolutely a threat to go to the playoffs, despite Kevin Sumlin being back. And that's for KJ and all the other Houston fans.
Well, thanks everybody for joining. I know I've seen a lot of familiar faces in the comment line. Marty and Robert and Henry and Jim and thanks for all you guys joining. We love seeing your names there every week. Comment. If there's ever a night to comment, tonight's the night. We'll definitely put it up and let you speak your mind. So let's move on to the next game. This one, Orlando comes out with a 29-23 win. Orlando really had nothing to play for in this game, but as I had mentioned last week, I had listened to Coach Beck talk about the fact that even though they had clinched and really had nothing to play for in Week 10, he said he owed it to his players to put the film out there, because you never know which game the scouts are going to be looking at. And so I got the idea watching this game. He wants to win. He not only wanted to win in Week 10, I think he wants the 3-game sweep.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Coach Beck in the last 3 years, of course, DC's always been St. Louis's biggest rival. And I think DC's probably got the better of St. Louis when it mattered. And so I think this year, Coach Beck is looking to turn the tides. But you look at this game, I mean, DC they were moving the ball up and down the floor, up and down the field. I mean, Jason Bean ran for 116 yards, averaged 10.5 yards a carry, but what reared its ugly head again?
Like we said before the game last week when we previewed it, turnovers and the penalties, the costly, undisciplined penalties, and just on and on and on. It's just every game, and I like the aggression. I mean, I'm a Chicago Bears fan, grew up with a 46 defense, the 85 Bears, but they just have so many costly penalties in every game. And really, like I said, the turnovers is what really did them in this weekend. They could have absolutely beat Orlando in that game. It was a really good game. But you can't just keep stabbing yourself over and over and over and expecting, to come out with a W.
Well, and we also commented on Jason Bean's tendency to want to slide when the getting's good. And it reared its ugly head again on this game.
Why?
Fourth quarter, he slid 1 yard short. Now, they went for it on fourth down, and they got it.
Right.
But he could have very well, on that third down play, dove forward and had a first down. So, again, I'm telling you, I just don't think it sits well with the locker room when you have a quarterback that you constantly see not willing to put their body on the line when they have to.
And I almost wonder, because, we watch these games and we look at the players' mannerisms and how they carry themselves, during the play, before the play, after the play. And I'm sitting there thinking while watching that game this weekend and watching him do that. And Ed, it's just like, we all have bad habits that we pick up along the way, and they're so tough to overcome. Whether it's someone smoking a cigarette like me, or just you get in bad habits and tendencies. And I really think Ed, it's a habit for him to slide. And it's like you can see he's running and he slides, and then you can tell his reaction after he slides. He's thinking, "Oh no!" Like I don't think he's doing it because he's scared of contact. He has just been coached that slide, don't get hurt, and it's just like, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do in the playoff game? What would he do if he made it to the championship game next week?
Yeah, so I gotta put this up because Marty's calling me out. He said I should have counted the Birmingham sacks too. So Marty, Birmingham had 1 sack. So there you go.
Marty, brother, I'm one of your good friends. I'm one of your best friends. Bless your heart, by the way, but I am. I love you. But if you can't figure out how many sacks we got by what I say, you gotta ask Ed. I thought it was 1, and I remember when it happened because literally the quarterback he literally fell down just to keep from having to take a hit, and I thought, they're gonna count that as a sack for us because I was fixing to hit AJ with that in the locker room after the game.
So
that took some of my thunder.
So you look at Orlando, and again, it's hard to say anything negative because now they're 8-2. Jack Plummer, 13 for 26, 203 with 2 touchdowns. Passer rating 101.9. Very.
And they're good on both lines of scrimmage too, Ed. They really are.
Yeah. And Orlando,
solid kicker.
23 rush attempts, and they averaged 3.3 yards a carry.
Well, and you got to remember that's against a DC team that is ultra aggressive, and that kid probably calls blitzes or run blitzes 45% of the plays. I mean, it's got to be the highest ratio in the league. Williams, he calls it. Boy, he's gonna bring them. But you're not ever gonna beat DC because they're in prevent. I can assure you, he's gonna bring them. And I like his style, but
before you're quick to say, "Oh man, Orlando handled them twice."
No.
I mean, look at the final score. Now, granted, DC scored a touchdown at the end of the game when it didn't matter, when the time was off the clock. But the game was tied 17-17 in the second half when Orlando blocks a punt out of the back of the end zone and goes up 19-17.
Yeah.
DC has to kick off to Orlando, and what happens? Orlando connects for a 74-yard touchdown pass to Camper. So in a blink of an eye, it went from 17-17 to 26-17. And so DC again shooting themselves in the foot. Orlando 0 sacks. But DC just had 3 costly turnovers. I mean, Jason Bean throws the pick 6, at the 7-yard line when they're going in for a touchdown. And at the time, DC's up 3-0. So
yeah, that was a 10 or 14-point swing, just like that.
DC's going in to go up 10-3, and instead they come out behind 7-3. I mean, and so I don't know. Call me a bruised St. Louis fan with Coach Beck at the helm, that when this time of season comes, the sphincter just tightens up a little bit. Just a little bit. So here we are, the 3rd time in a row, DC is going to play Orlando. Boy, we'll get into that game, but I don't know, man. We'll get to it in the pick'em, but I'm going to have a hard time taking Orlando. Let's see if I do it. Let's see.
Yeah.
And then the final game of the week, What a game. I mean,
Man, there was some rock'em sock'em. I mean, looked like Bounty Bowl from the Eagles and the Cowboys. I stood up and I was sitting there shadow boxing. I think I pulled a fat roll. I was like, yeah, this is football.
yeah, they had oh God, I just went blank. Who's the cornerback for Louisville? Number 3. He's an ex-Viking. Oh,
He had a good game. He had a really good game, but I can't remember his name either. Somebody in the comments, throw it in there.
yeah, throw it in the comments because I just totally had a senior moment.
We're old, we're tired. It's been a long day, and it's Wednesday night. So somebody throw it. Who was Louisville's starting quarterback?
The starting cornerback, number 3. God. But anyway, he got tossed. He got into a fight, threw a haymaker, and he got tossed. And right away, my eyes lit up because he's had a hell of a season. I'm sure he's going to make the All-UFL team on defense. But I'm thinking, hey, when a player's thrown out of a game, that's an automatic 1-game suspension, isn't it? But then they said, for those of you who may have been wondering if he'll be suspended for the playoff game, no, they don't. That 1-game suspension doesn't apply the week before a playoff. And I'm like, oh.
And give Columbus a lot of credit because the game they put on against Birmingham last week at home and then finishing off with another solid crowd already eliminated. And there for, 3 quarters, they gave Louisville really everything they wanted. It was back and forth. But Louisville looks so good right now.
Of course, Louisville even rested Chandler Rogers. And they still were able to be effective. So Louisville definitely is one of the hottest teams in the league. That's for sure. Do we really want to spend much more time on this game? Everything was decided. Nothing was really there to play for. Louisville was going to St. Louis no matter what. So
yeah.
But let's
go give Louisville credit before we move on. They started the season 0-3 and could have easily beat Birmingham in week 1. Then they had the controversial Orlando game, which they ended up avenging. They started 0-3. 0-3 and won 6 out of their last 7 games and did not look fluky about it. And now that you go back and see, the 2 games that Louisville did give Orlando, well, it makes perfect sense because they're pretty much, those are 2 even teams, or, they belong in the playoffs. And I'm glad, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, the best 4 teams did make it to the playoffs. And that's coming from a Birmingham fan. Did I want us to make it? Of course I did, but I've got eyes. I knew after 8 weeks Birmingham didn't deserve to be in the playoffs, but it is what it is.
Louisville didn't need much production out of their quarterbacks. When your running game is averaging 6.4 yards a pop and you end up with 205 yards rushing, that pretty much tells the tale of how that game went. I know that in the post-game presser after Louisville lost to St. Louis in Louisville before the Kentucky Derby weekend, Coach Redmond made the comment, like I said before in the presser, that he still thinks that they've got a great team and that he still didn't think they were out of it. Well, 2 DC games later, swept DC. So hats off to Louisville for not throwing in the towel and putting together a hell of a stretch run for sure.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'll quickly put up the final standings for the season. We had, when you really look at the bottom half, to have three of the teams finish 4-6 and the other one 3-7, that does go a long way. The parity in this league, because what was it last year, Brett? I think we had a couple 1-win teams and a 2-win team, and so to see the so much. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that finished between 6-4 and 4-6. So I mean, hats off to Orlando. Very solid regular season. Columbus finished in the bottom at 3-7, but I look for bigger and better things out of them next year. They kind of had a coaches roundtable, and they talked about the fact that a lot of these coaches, and they even commented on it, came into the league really late in the game.
Right.
And really didn't have a chance to really work at preparing for the season. Well, now we're going to go into next year, and if it's true that they got all the coaches on a 2-year contract and they have some stability and bring all the coaches back next year, well, now you're bringing in a whole coaching staff that has had a chance to have a season under their belt, had a chance to know their roster, do a lot better job of protecting the players that they want to protect, whatever that's going to look like. Whether they'll change anything there, who knows? But I really think that next year we can even build on this season. Let's go ahead and let's take a break and hear from Wild Sun. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about what the average attendance ended up being. Let's talk about some signings for the playoffs, some players that are going to get the opportunity to get a tryout in the NFL. I'm sure there's more than what I've got, but I put some of them together. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So James Larson put this together and posted this earlier this week. And here is the average attendance numbers for the 2026 season. Birmingham, 8,200. Columbus, just over 10,000. Dallas coming in at 6,400. DC average 9,000. Houston, 5,600. Louisville come in a little over 11,000. So between Columbus and Louisville, very respectable first season for them for sure. Orlando as well. They almost averaged 10,000. Probably one of the biggest drop-offs in the league, of course, was St. Louis. coming in at just over 23,000. So do we want to look at what your attendance predictions were at the beginning of the season?
If we must, they fell well short.
Let's go ahead and put those up, and we'll see where we missed the mark.
Ooh.
St. Louis, 27,000. So that was a little less than 4,000 heavy. DC was 9,000. The prediction was 14,700. Columbus, Orlando, and Louisville all come in under that. But as I said, those three teams were respectable. Birmingham come in well under your prediction. Houston, big time under your prediction. So average, you had an average projected league average of 14, almost 15,000 a game. That didn't happen, but when we're talking about butts in the seats being less, they were, I would say, significantly less. And we're going to have to figure out what that looks like, and it's definitely got to improve. But on a better note, we could talk about viewership. Viewership was much better. Let's see. You gave me some viewership numbers. Here is one that you gave me. 2026 UFL on ESPN was up 8% over 25 with an average viewership of 686,000 a game. You had ABC up 14% for 10 games, and that was 941,000 average viewership. So what do you think about that, Brett?
No, that's really strong. That was the ABC games was better than what I anticipated, and reason being, you look at that average at 940,000. Hell, we only got 2 games last year over 1 million. We've either had 4 or 5 games this year over 1 million, and we still got 2 playoff games and the championship game remaining. And for that to average close, it's not 1 million, but it's close to averaging 1 million. That's a real promising sign. And again, I try to keep my ear on the heartbeat of the league on Instagram and Facebook and X, and I see so many more people on so many more different posts commenting and mentioning the league, and it's all, for the most part, very positive. You're always going to have a troll or two thrown in there and naysayers and haters, but to me, that really gives Rapoli and the rest of the league hope that the attendance can be turned around and can be improved. I'm excited.
So then we look at the Friday night games on Fox. Year over year, about another 19,000 viewers per game.
Right.
So that's an improvement, although I was hoping that the Fox Friday night games would have been done a little better. But still.
Are we sure that number's accurate? I thought the latest number I threw into you, did it average 670? Anyways, it was up probably 30, 40,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely up. It wasn't up a ton, though. I think it was up 4% from last year's, what they calculated.
So let's, you got any other comments you want to hit on attendance before we move on?
Yeah, I got so many calls and texts, Saturday night from Birmingham fans and messages from Facebook Messenger and people I hadn't talked to in a couple of years asking me what I thought about, do I think Birmingham's going to be back and yada, yada, yada. And me and Marty had this conversation with one of our buddies pregame Saturday. And my hunch is everyone's going to be back. And I think Ripoli's going to do the right thing continuity wise. Get all 8 teams back in there. They've got to do some real marketing in Houston and Dallas. There's so many bodies in that area. There's just I will never believe if they don't try it that you can't average 10 to 15,000 in Houston and Dallas. I won't believe it. Now I think they can average, and they've averaged close to 12, 13,000 in Birmingham. But do I think Birmingham's going to be back at Protective Stadium? No, I do not. It's a 47,000 seat stadium. It was a lot of fun when we had the 19,000 crowd. It was a lot of fun when we had the 15,000 crowd. It was had another game during the USFL that probably drew close to 20, but they didn't keep up or release attendance numbers. And then, of course, the first game there was 32,000 in the seats 5 years ago, which we've not gotten close to that since. Unfortunately, it's just what Mike's trying to do. I don't think he's going to take Birmingham and the brand and the name away, especially with our viewership. It's always been pretty good. We're always number 1 or number 2 in viewership. But I would definitely expect them to be playing at the Met next year. That's just my gut feeling. Yes, it's a baseball stadium. Hoover plays their football games there, so it can be expanded to 16,000, I think. But without the expansion, it's 12,000. It's perfect size for our core that we have at these Stallions games. But, I don't know if we want to touch on this now or not, but there's going to be a lot of Birmingham fans who are not going to be happy with AJ coming back next year. They really, really have their heart set on Skip coming back, and I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Well,
so that could negatively affect ticket sales as well. So
Marty commented here, too, that he thought that AJ even thought the attendance was higher at Birmingham than what was reported by the league.
Yeah. Marty, I know. I was there. I was in the post-game presser. Now, I'll say this, and I'll go to my grave thinking this. I thought we had every bit of 8,000, 7 to 8, the night that they gave us our lowest attendance. When they gave us that 4,200 number, and I told you this, and I posted it publicly, that didn't jive with me whatsoever. And I can assure you there was more in that crowd that night for the Renegades game than there was the last 2 games. But yet they still gave us 4,200 for that game, which I'm telling you, I've been to every home game but one. There was 8,000 people in the stands for that Dallas game. So I don't know who, what, when, where. I wouldn't doubt that the Saturday game wasn't pretty accurate, because there was far less there than what it was that Saturday night game with Dallas. So I don't know how the hell they're counting attendance. I don't know if they're going tickets sold one game. I don't know if they're going tickets dispersed one game. I don't know if they're going butts and seats one game. I ain't got a clue how they're counting this. It really, being a fan, and the first half I'm usually down in the seats, with everybody else. And in the second half, I usually go up to the press box, and I got a view of the whole stadium, which I'm steadily staring people coming in and out anyways, because I'm trying to keep up with attendance. And I'll give AJ credit. The last 3 games was totally flip-flop from what I thought. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
Well, let's move on to let's talk about a few players. I'm sure there's a lot more that because John Gruden made the comment today, it was yesterday, that he thinks the NFL is going to come calling for a lot of these players this year. He commented that he thought the quality of the play in the UFL was definitely NFL level for some of the players with these teams, and so he definitely thinks there'll be interest. Now, again, there's probably more activity than what I'm going to show here, but I just was going to do a couple. You got Birmingham. You've got Jaden Peavy that's getting interest from the Atlanta Falcons. He appeared in 5 games this season, recording 19 tackles. Dallas, there's multiple teams interested in DeMarcus Mitchell. Mitchell finished the 2026 season appearing in all 10 games with three sacks and 1 forced fumble. Then you've got Houston. I would tell BJ Mays to turn around and run, because if Green Bay Packers want you, don't go there. Don't do it. Don't do it. As a Vikings fan, I can tell you, you don't want to be a Green Bay Packer. But he finished the season in the UFL playing in 4 games and recorded 12 tackles. Then you've got wide receiver Jalen Moreno. Is that Cropper?
Yeah.
Denver Broncos are showing interest in him. He's a wide receiver, kick returner. So having said that, then we also had some signings. DC come out with a post saying they're back. Linebacker Anthony Hines, offensive lineman Gunnar Britton, linebacker Andre Mitzi. All 3 are returning to DC for the playoff run. Orlando signed Dallas running back Deuce Vaughn, former running back. St. Louis signed a cornerback from the Michigan Panthers.
That was a big need for St. Louis.
Oh my God, yes. St. Louis has been hit with the injury bug. A lot of defensive backs going down. And then St. Louis also signed another guy. The offensive line is in need of help as well. We signed a guard, Quay McBroom. He played college football at ULM and Northeastern Oklahoma A&M. John David, one of our viewers, told me today that he played ball with one of his boys. I
recognize that wild uniform. I knew he played at ULM wearing that uniform.
So heading into the playoffs, like this post says, and then there were 4: DC, Orlando, Louisville, and St. Louis. So here is the playoff schedule. Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. On Sunday, 2 o'clock Central. On ABC, you've got Orlando playing DC. And at 5 o'clock Central, you've got St. Louis Battlehawks at home against the Louisville Kings. One interesting note was they originally were going to have that game. They had moved that game to Columbus, and Rapoli heard the fans and they're playing the game in Daytona. Where do I got that? Here we go. Daytona Stadium, Daytona Beach, Florida. A little bit about the stadium. Daytona Stadium, also known as Larry Kelly Field, multi-purpose stadium in Daytona Beach, Florida. It hosts football for the Bethlehem Cookman University and local high schools, as well as other events like soccer and concerts. Opened in 1988, it has a seating capacity of 10,000 and features amenities like Jumbotron, VIP suites, and concessions. So I don't know about you, Brett, but I think it sounds like it's going to work out just fine for them.
Yeah, it was a good move by the league. Unfortunately, and we've talked about this ad nauseum over the last few years doing the show, they say scheduling is the toughest thing to put together with spring football because unfortunately we're always third or fourth on the totem pole with a lot of these venues. So it gets very, very hairy trying to make these schedules and put everything in place. And unfortunately, this year we've got the World Cup in the United States, and that is one of the World Cup games is what prevented them from playing at their regular stadium in downtown Orlando. But they had scheduled it for the historic Cruise Field in Columbus, and the Orlando people and just people like myself on X and Facebook and Instagram just sounded off. And then they put out a statement. Look, they're still working on an option. And I think it was Sunday night, Anthony Beck made one of his posts on X. Something could be brewing, and that's when I kind of figured out that they found a venue there in Florida, and it was the right move to make because it's 50 miles or less from a lot of the fans. Drive right up there. It's going to have a similar feel to how the Fort Hood game did, with the Renegades there for their last home game. And again, the transparency by Rapoli and sending guys down there to that stadium again after announcing, if they had Columbus secured just in case. To me, the leadership this year is far and above what we've seen the last few years in the league. So I commend them for doing the best they could do, honestly.
I'm not sure. To me, do you know, Brett? Is that one of our viewers is asking? Is it natural grass or artificial turf?
I think it's turf. I think it's turf.
It's turf. Okay.
I think so. Yeah. But I think it's a newer field too.
So let's talk about some records that went down this year. Ta'amu, who of course, as we all know, is done for the season, but he's officially become the all-time leading spring football passer with 10,464 career passing yards. He surpassed Luis Perez by a little over 1,500 yards. So if I was a betting man, I would say chances are Luis Perez is going to be retiring at the end of the season. That's purely speculation on my part, but I'd be willing to bet that that's the case. Having said that, Jordan Ta'amu, I think they interviewed him during the DC game this last weekend, and it sounds to me like he's still planning on coming back and playing next year. So he may set a spring football passing record that will never be passed. We'll have to wait and see. Then you've got Crowder, Tay Crowder, that is the UFL single season tackle record, 83 tackles in 9 games played. So he takes over as the tackling king of the UFL.
And trust me, with that front in front of him and our lack of production on offense this year, he earned that. I can assure you. That poor guy is probably just a walking bruise right now. If and I'm sure he will get some serious looks by the NFL. I got a feeling he's probably a guy Birmingham won't be able to bring back next year. I imagine he'll be on the roster somewhere, even practice squad, worst case scenario. But I think we would love to have him back in Birmingham.
And then there was one more record broken. Battlehawks wide receiver Hakeem Butler. He's officially the all-time leader in spring football receiving yards with 2,192. He posted 641 yards this season, and he surpasses Jonathan Adams, who previously held the record with 1,801 yards. So that's another well-known name in the UFL. It'll be interesting to see whether Hakeem Butler comes back yet again next year. The guy is a man amongst boys, so unless he makes the decision he doesn't want to come back, I got to think that you'll see him back in the UFL again next season.
Still tough to believe that he can't even get on and stay on a practice squad in the NFL. I don't understand that. But again, what do we know?
Yeah. So a little poll that was taken this afternoon. I think it was this afternoon, wasn't it, Brent? You sent it to me.
Yeah, I posted it yesterday, and it's still active for another day. But I think it was a good little sample size.
Yeah, I'll just give you the results so far. Heading into the playoffs, who you got? This was posted on UFL Fans, who is officially a partner with the Bottom Line podcast. In fact, we're having our Bottom Line UFL podcast as we speak. Little post today that was put out there. So here's the results of the poll so far. The playoffs are set. Who wins the championship? Right now, Louisville Kings, 51%, followed by the Orlando Storm at 23%, St. Louis Battlehawks at 18%, and DC at 8%. I'm sure that those numbers will change. It's relatively early, so we'll have to post an update to that, Brett, once it's been on a little bit longer.
How do you think about those results? I mean, I know it's nothing but fans' opinions, but I was kind of pretty surprised at how lopsided it was.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Louisville and Orlando are the top two. I don't know that I don't know that I necessarily agree with the percentages right now that there's that big of a gap between Louisville and Orlando. But I think you could interchange Orlando and Louisville. And if you was to check your update right now and see where it's at, it's probably, I got to think the 51 and the 23 are getting a little closer together by now.
I really expected more St. Louis picks, to be honest, because of the large fan base, the size of the fan base in general. But with the recent losses and that wonderful play, I mean it makes me respect their voting either way, because at least it shows not a lot of bias there, anyways.
Yeah, we got another viewer. I'm biased, but don't forget first 4-point field goal. So
you know who that is? That's the father of the kid that kicked the.
That's the father of the kicker, right?
Yes, sir. The DC kicker, correct, Mr. It's McCrane.
Yeah, in fact, the very first game of the year, McCrane kicked the first 4-point field goal against the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Yeah.
And of course, I like that rule until that kick, and then I thought it sucked, to be frank. But no, it's St. Louis or the UFL has a couple very quality kickers in the league this year. McCrane being one of them. Tanner Brown is the other. Those two have pretty much, from a kicking standpoint, pretty much ruled the league. Wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you agree, Brett?
Tell you what, there's been some shaky kicking in the league this year, but McCrane has been solid the whole time. He did have a couple misses this weekend, but I'm telling you, he's won many a game for DC. He's got a cannon for a leg, and I'm sure he will definitely have a good game against Orlando this weekend in another rematch. But yeah, I'm glad his pops showed up and mentioned that. Every time Birmingham plays DC and your son comes up to kick, I just shake my head. So that lets you know he's pretty good. Being a Birmingham fan, I've been very spoiled with kickers too, and this year that didn't work out at all. So it's been a very humbling season for the Stallions fans.
Well, I usually have my picks made well in advance.
Let's do the picks.
Well, let's go into the previews of these games coming up on Sunday. First game, DC travels to Daytona Beach to play the Orlando Storm. The Orlando Storm is currently 3.5-point favorites. This game gets kicked off at 2 p.m. on Sunday afternoon on ABC. The over-under is 47.5. I've got being a St. Louis fan, I have got so much respect for DC and their coaching staff. Coach Harris, Fred Keiss, and the defensive coordinator being the son of a St. Louis Ram, defensive coordinator from years ago. DC has just been one of those teams that they're just tough. They play the style of football that I've always enjoyed. You know, I'm a big Vikings fan, and I'm a big fan of the Purple People Eaters of the 70s, and it was always rough and tough football, and that's the style DC plays. Like I said, if I'm Coach Beck, this is the time of the year when the old sphincter starts to tighten, getting a little tight. And I guess what we're going to find out is the underperformance by the St. Louis Battlehawks the last 2 years. Was it more the players or was it more the coaches? I walked away the last 2 years saying to myself, Coach Beck, when the playoff game come around, he went conservative. Is that going to happen again this time around? What do you think, Brett? I just can't fathom the DC Defenders getting beat 3 consecutive weeks by the same team.
I tell you what, there's these two games. Literally, if you're a big fan of the league, like me and you are, we could legitimately go back and forth with each other and the viewers for probably an hour just covering these two games because to me they're so evenly matched. There, there's really there's not one game you can go in here and say, oh, this team is going to kick this team's hind end. It's just not. Go back to last week. I mean, again, the kicker for DC missed a couple kicks. That is not. It's not typical. The kid's been one of the best kickers in the league now. I'm surprised he's not in the NFL. And good for DC that he's not. But you throw those two misses out. Well, that was the difference in the game score wise. So you got an even game, but then you've got DC with all the penalties. But then again, that is just who DC is. They play out on the outer edge. They play physical and beyond, and that's why they lead the league every year in penalties. Do you really think that's going to stop this weekend? And then you say, well, it was still even after all the penalties and the two missed field goals. DC also had 3 turnovers. One of them was a pick six, like you said, where DC was fixing to go up 10-0, or at worst case scenario, 6-0. After the play was over, they were down 7-3. Then they also had a blocked punt for a safety. It would be an absolute brutal loss for Anthony Beck and the Storm. It truly would, because I mean, really, it's been a league full of parity this year. I mean, it really has. These teams are so evenly matched in so many areas. But when you go from the very first game to the very last game, you got to give Orlando credit. They're 8-2 for a reason. But there again, like you said, they gonna be able to beat DC 3 times. These 2-point spreads on these games are just. I pulled them up and sent them to y'all. What was it, Sunday night? And I've been debating on them ever since I sent them to you. And the lines have barely moved too, and I mean, rightfully so. These are going to be too. I hope I'm right. A lot of times with these championship weekends, you end up with a surprise, a blowout that nobody saw coming. But it wouldn't surprise me for both these games to come down to the final play. I mean, both games.
Well, anybody who listens to the bottom line, even when we're doing college football, when we're doing the NFL, and in the UFL, I've always been big on narratives. You got to change the narrative. And what's the narrative on Coach Beck as far as the UFL is concerned? When it comes down to the big game in the playoffs, can he get the win? So far, he's over. And until you change the narrative, I'm sorry, but it's tough to take Orlando in this game. But then again, flip the coin. You come over on the DC side. I'm not sold, and I've said it the last 2 weeks. I'm not sold that DC has the faith in Jason Bean. I just don't. Are they going to give Jason Bean the starting job for this weekend?
Yeah. He's going to be the starter.
He probably will be the starter. But it just keeps rearing its head, and the air, the way he holds himself. If you watch the post-game presser when DC comes in, sits down, Coach Harris starts talking, just as upbeat as can be. But then Jason Bean is sitting next to him, and it's just the way Jason Bean carries himself. He just does not portray confidence. He just does not portray confidence to me. And as long as you're going to continue, I hate to keep saying it, but like you said, Brett, maybe it is just habit to slide. But you got to know the situation. You got to know where the first down's at. You got to understand the gravity of the situation. And when it warrants going for the leap over the goal line for a touchdown, or getting that crucial first down to keep the clock running, or get that crucial yard to move the chains, he has not shown that he's got that leadership characteristic to lead the team. And that's the only thing when I look at this game, as much as I want to take DC in this, I keep saying, and then there's Jason Bean. And it just puts me in a real quandary between the narrative of Beck not winning the big one and Jason Bean. To me, he doesn't portray himself as a leader. So
let's go ahead and share Eric and KJ's picks, and just kind of go from there. Do you have their picks on this particular game?
Yes, I do. Eric is going with Orlando. And I see in the comment line, we've got John David taking Orlando. We got Robert taking Orlando. John Grimsley says DC is going to pull the upset. Then we got KJ. KJ is taking DC in this one. So Eric and KJ split. I know who I'm taking in this game. Do you want me to go first? We got Eric weighing in. He's taking DC as well. Eric is the dad of Evan, the little dude.
Oh, okay.
My tailgating partner. Marty is taking Orlando. But I'll go first, Brett, and then I'll let you go on this one. I'm rolling with DC. I just cannot fathom the fact that DC is going to lose 3 games in a row. And as excited as Coach Beck was to win in Week 10, I just got to believe in his mind, he's thinking, shit, here comes the playoffs again. And with that 3.5 points, even if Orlando kicks a late field goal, and as long as it's not a 4-yard field goal, which I feel better about because the 4-point kicker is on DC's team. So even if Orlando is to squeak this out, I still don't think they can cover the 3.5 points. So with that said, I am rolling with DC in this game.
One thing.
Should I put the ticker up there, Brett? Because everybody probably wants to see that I am currently in the lead.
He cheats everybody. He runs the show, so we got to let him win.
Heading into the playoff with the points, I'm currently got a 2 game lead over Brett and KJ. So I take DC. Eric has Orlando. KJ has DC. We're waiting for Brett.
And again, guys, y'all were picking the winners. This season's the first time we're picking the actual point spreads, thanks to Eric. But as much crap as I've given Eric over the point spreads, I'm thankful for the point spread in this game. I'm with Ed. I really don't know who's going to win this game, but I'll absolutely take the DC in the 3.5. But I will say this. I wonder all week, I know it's just Wednesday, ever since the games, Sunday night I started debating on these games, and I wonder how is DC going to give this game away? It literally crosses my mind. Is it going to be a turnover? Is it going to be 12 penalties for 115 yards, which is so DC? or is Becht going to go full Becht, which is, what he's done in this history in St. Louis. Win-loss record is very good, but when it gets to crunch time, it has not been so good, and those games have not even been close that he has lost. I think if the turnovers were even and the penalties were even, you could literally flip a coin in this game. But I can't tell you who's going to win, but I will tell you I'm going to take DC in the 3.5 points.
So we've got 3 of the panel taking DC, and Eric is the only one taking Orlando. Coach Beck has an opportunity to change the narrative. Will he do it? We will see.
Well, that'll be a brutal. You got to think real quick before we go to the next game. That'd be one brutal loss for Beck. Because I'm with you. I think he really, really, really wants this bad. And to have the best record in the regular season, to get your home game, even if it's not necessarily in home stadium, but go ahead and get it in state where he's going to have a pretty decent crowd there, I would imagine. God, that would, you think about that, that'd probably be his most brutal one yet.
Well,
he
has shown he is without a doubt a quality coach, because not only did he have St. Louis in contention every year, but then he goes to Orlando and starts from scratch, puts a team together, and has the best record in the UFL. So you got to give the guy his kudos. I mean,
he's held that talent evaluating, isn't he?
Yeah, he and another thing with Coach Beck too that you got to say, he's truly got the best interests of the players at heart. And he'll do anything he can to get the players to the next level. And I firmly believe that is his one of his only reasons for coaching at this level. But I think that as much as he's pursued a college coaching job the last couple of years, I think that this could very possibly be his final season in the UFL, because I think every year he puts on his resume of the quality of teams that he seems to put in and year out.
Yep.
His name starts moving up the list. And so if this is his last year, I'm sure he'd love to go out with a ring, for sure. Eric being a St. Louis fan, with my question about whether I thought it was the St. Louis coaches or the St. Louis players with the last couple of years falling short. He thinks it's mostly St. Louis coaches. Well, I don't know that maybe I misunderstand what he's saying here, but he says not scratch. It was mostly St. Louis coaches and players. So he'll have to clarify that. I'm not sure what he's getting at there.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think the main thing that really hampered St. Louis was they had no quarterback last year, and the year before they had a one-legged AJ that probably shouldn't have been out there, but he was really better than anybody else they had. So you're kind of, excuse my language, damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really understood the level of what that injury was. I mean, what he went through to play, not only to play the game or the rest of the season out, injured as he was, to know how much time it took him postseason to recover from the injury that he had going into those last couple of weeks. I think UFL fans out there would have a hell of a lot more respect for AJ if they really truly understood what he put on the line to play quarterback for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
AJ wanted to win. You know, he wanted to win, and it was unfortunate that happened to him. You know, and of course it probably Birmingham won the championship that year. The injury happened there in Birmingham. I was there, and it was another heck of a game, like it always is when Birmingham and St. Louis play. Um, Again, I really can't emphasize this enough. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I think these are, but I caution back. This is not going to be a game, in my opinion, that he can rely on winning 17-10. I think it's going to be wild and woolly. Now, if DC can hold on to the ball and the turnovers are even, watch out. DC might be playing a championship game at home the following week. I just worry DC is just self-destructed so much this year, between penalties and everything else. It's just, and again, they don't have Tiamu. I think Bean really helps them go to another level with his mobility, but he does set them back some in the passing game. And he's got to just get it in his mind. If it's fourth down, what is that movie we were talking about the other night that I love? Those two brothers, Hell or High Water.
Yeah.
Come hell or high water, he better not slide Sunday on fourth down. I don't give a shit if he thinks he's 2 yards over the first down marker. He better go ahead and put that head down and take some contact, because if he don't, you can get blackballed out of football too, just like with any other industry.
So let's move on to the second game. I'm almost afraid to go to this game. The Louisville Kings, winners of, what do they win? 4 of their last 5? I think they won 4 of their last 5.
6 out of their last 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 6 out of 7.
Travels the St. Louis Battlehawks, who's also 6-4. It's the 5 o'clock game, 5 p.m. Central. Fox is covering this game. The over-under is 46.5. Before I even give my prediction, I'll take the under on the 46.5. I think the 46.5 is a little high for this game. You're talking 2 really tough defenses. St. Louis is struggling on offense. Louisville has got a strong running attack. However, that's one of the strengths of St. Louis. So I look for an all-out defensive slobber knocker in this game. I think it's big-time imperative that St. Louis get a lead. The St. Louis defense, they got a lead. It took them a while to get the lead in Louisville. But once St. Louis got the lead against Louisville, it was a wrap, because St. Louis pinned their ears back and they went after Louisville, and they had no answer. And that was, I believe that was Chandler Rogers' first. Was that his first?
First or second start, I believe.
Yeah, I think that was one of his first starts for Louisville. So of course they didn't have the timing and all that down yet. So it's kind of hard to judge him on that first game. But I think it's imperative that St. Louis play mistake-free. And that just pure and simple. Luis Perez can't throw the picks. Just can't throw the picks. And it makes me wonder, it's been tight-lipped this week. Does Harrison Frost see some action if Perez is struggling? I got to believe that Coach Prohl is going to put everything on the table. And at halftime, even if he starts Perez, if Perez is not dazzling by halftime, I wouldn't be surprised to see Frost in the second half.
You know, we talked. When did you come back from Iowa? When did you call me? Was it Monday night?
On the way back Monday night, I called you.
You know, we had this very same conversation Monday night that we're pretty much having right now, and that's. I mean, again, this is so evenly matched. But I told you what is sticking out to me is St. Louis's problem. It's a matter, again, of tendencies. Are they going to be bold enough to break those tendencies? And I told you the Louisville-St. Louis matchup was terrible matchup for Louisville. And that was exposed 50 of the 60 minutes in Louisville. And that is, Louisville averaged 6 yards a carry against Columbus last week. That's great and wonderful. You know who's the worst rushing defense in the league this year? Columbus. If they go into the game like they did in Louisville, and Redmond wants to do 3 yards in a cloud of dust against St. Louis, they will fail. And they will fail offensively just as miserably as they did in Louisville when you were there. And go and look at what St. Louis has averaged this year rushing the ball. But I feel like AJ throws the ball too much. You run the ball and you power run it downfield and you get in the red zone and you start wanting to sling it. You know, I'm that old school attitude, run it until they prove they man enough to stop you. So I feel like if Redmond will open the playbook up and let Rodgers do some ad lib and some read option and sling it around a little bit, St. Louis is in trouble. If they don't, if they play the conservative game, which is what they did in Louisville, you're running into a brick wall. I don't think people really respect. You know, I've watched spring ball since 01, and then before 01 with the original XFL, and then every year, 2019, 2020, on to now, every year. St. Louis has by far the best defensive front I've seen in spring football right now, and it's really not even close. Birmingham had a couple good ones. There's been some other teams that, DC has had a good defensive front. They've got a good one right now. But St. Louis is 6 deep. They got 6 guys on that defensive front that any team in this league would love to have. And you're just not going to run on St. Louis. Yeah, you'll get one every so often. But in the meantime, you've got 13 other runs for an average of 1.5 yards. That's not going to beat St. Louis. So if Redmond opens up the playbook, St. Louis could be in a little bit of trouble. But I still think with their defense and AJ, if AJ will do some more ground and pound and quit trying to throw the ball every down, I don't know if Louisville's defense can stop St. Louis's run. So I'm just real curious. What are these coaches going to do? It's fascinating to me because, again, it's another so evenly matched game. But that running on first and second down and going third and long, that silly game that Louisville tried with St. Louis, that didn't work then and it ain't going to work now. So if they try that Sunday, y'all should be in high cotton. You shouldn't have a whole lot of worries.
So are you going to go ahead and give your prediction or no?
I was kind of hoping you would, and at least we could share Eric and Chad, or Eric and KJ. I'm still undecided. Let me tell you what really flipped me on my ear earlier. I was going to take Louisville in the 2.5 because that was the line I sent you Sunday. Well, obviously the line's moved a point, so now it's 1.5. So I'm like, how the hell can I still take Louisville and St. Louis only win by a point?
So here we go, Brett. Eric, the bottom line, Eric, is taking Louisville.
Wow.
KJ is taking Louisville.
Wow.
Robert is taking Louisville. Marty's taking Louisville. Henry's taking Louisville. John David's taking Louisville.
Holy shit.
And we got a DC fan here that just took Louisville. So it's like a clean sweep for Louisville. I will say that this is all because of one thing in my mind. And the one thing is Luis Perez has been a major disappointment for the St. Louis Battlehawks. And I'm not saying that because I haven't watched, because I've watched, and rewatched these games. And the common theme that I am seeing is throwing behind the receivers, giving the defensive backs a chance to play on the ball if he would lead them properly, they'd not only catch the ball, but they would have a chance to actually run after the catch for additional yardage. There's been several times that the wide receivers for the Battlehawks have their cornerbacks beat, but he either doesn't have the arm strength to get the ball down the field because he's putting way too much air under it. So when these defensive backs get beat, by the time the ball gets to the receiver, they have a chance to recover. So what's happening then? The defensive backs start reading Perez, and they read that quick out. They read the slant. They read the short patterns to the sideline, and now you're seeing pick sixes. So I mean, St. Louis somehow has to find a way to get the lead Sunday. If they can get the lead and be able to turn their defense loose, I think they can pull the win out, and it could be a long day for Louisville. But if St. Louis goes out there in the first half and he throws a pick, or they have 2 or 3 straight 3-and-outs, and the crowd does not stay, because I tell you what, when St. Louis has the fans' support, that place is rocking. It don't matter whether it's 1st and 10, 3rd and 1, 2nd and 4. That crowd is into it. It's noisy. The offense of the opposing team can't hear squat. But when they start getting frustrated with the performance of Perez, there are times that you can hear a pin drop. That is when I think the other teams have a chance to jump all over St. Louis. So St. Louis has got to be able to play mistake-free football in the first half, and they have to go in at halftime with the lead. If they go in with the lead, I think they can carry this game. But what tells me, after seeing the last 2 games, that that's a possibility? I don't know. I'm still on the fence.
Yeah.
Excalibur says, you think Frost will be ready at a moment's notice?
I do.
I guarantee you Frost has got the same amount of snaps this week as Perez. I think that Coach Prohl has laid the groundwork here, that I think he'll go with Perez, but Perez has got a short leash in this one. And if you look at Harrison Frost's performance in Louisville, St. Louis won 16-3. It wasn't like St. Louis just had an offensive explosion. Harrison Frost led the team, but he led the team mistake-free. He didn't have the glaring pick sixes and the killer turnovers. And again, if you ever have a 4th and 1 or a 4th and a foot, don't give it to Luis Perez on a center sneak.
No.
God, dude. Okay. So, with that said, do you want to go first, Brett? Because I'm still flip-flopping here.
I was actually in my mind, I was mortally locked on Louisville plus 2.5. But now that it's 1.5, and again, it's just like you said. I mean, St. Louis just owned Louisville in that game, and these are pretty much the same offensive and defensive lines. But again, I think the result of this game is going to hinge so much on the coaches, because I think the players, and talent-wise, is very evenly matched. I will say this, one thing that nobody has mentioned that I think has hurt St. Louis recently, and that was your safety valve, the tight end, the kid that recovered from cancer or whatever, that tore his leg up. You guys have really missed him the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
He brought some attitude to the offense. I mean,
he was tough.
Yeah, that was something that's kind of lacking right now. Yes, Excalibur, I agree with you. St. Louis crowd will play a role if St. Louis is playing good football and they can play with a lead. But you've been at those games and you've seen what happens to the crowd when they get unhappy. It can completely change the whole vibe of the dome. And there's something else St. Louis is going to have to be ready for. You know, it's been good old natured back and forth with Louisville fans this week, but Louisville's going to come with some fans this week. And I think more than any other home game, you're going to see some green in the stands. I think you're going to see some green. So it should be an exciting game. Eric, I agree with you. McBride, in a lot of ways, McBride has become the go-to guy because for whatever reason, they just can't seem to get Butler consistently involved in the offense. So with that said, Brett, I'm going to let you go first because I'm still hee-hawing.
All right. Well, I mean, I hate to go ahead and make excuses before I even make a pick. I think Redmond, even though he's a new coach, I think he's intelligent. And he knows what I'm saying. I mean, he knows a hell of a lot more than what I'm saying. But he knows the game plan that they went with against St. Louis and Louisville is not going to work. It's not. And St. Louis would literally have to hand them the game if that's the way they want to play it. You can't run it on first and second down against St. Louis. It'll be 3rd and 12 every time. I think Louisville's not going to do that. I really like Louisville plus 2.5. So hell, give me Louisville plus 1.5. But I do think whoever wins, it will be 3 points or less. I think it is going to be one hell of a physical, great. Both games, I think both games are going to be must-see TV. So give me Louisville plus 1.5, and I hope for Ed's sake I am wrong.
Well, I've made my decision. I have, as anybody that's watched this show this year, you know that I've pretty much ride and died with St. Louis. And it's been a pretty difficult last 3 games or so because they just haven't played the kind of football that I know that they can play. But for whatever reason, I think that they are going to put it together this weekend. And when I say they, I say St. Louis. I think St. Louis has that game, whether it's Frost or whether it's Perez. I think the offense, and you nailed it too, Brett, when you said St. Louis needs to run the ball more. They very well can run the ball. You know, Howard's done well, but James has been a pleasant surprise. James has done really well. It's too bad that Latulis, he got hurt about 4 weeks ago, I think it was. And James stepped in and really hasn't given him a chance to get his job back. So I think if they utilize James and Howard, not just running the ball, but passes out of the backfield, screens, anything they can come up with, as long as they can be error free, as long as they're mistake free and don't throw the costly picks, I think that this game will come down to the wire. And that's when the home crowd, I got to believe the home crowd will bring it home. So I am taking St. Louis to make it to DC. And I'm looking at a DC St. Louis game for all the roses. And I was listening to Matty Fresh a week or two ago, and he made the comment that with Ta'amu out, if there was ever a year for St. Louis to bring it home, this was the year with Ta'amu being out. So I'm not losing the faith, man. So I am taking St. Louis in a close nail biter. I'm giving the 1.5 points. Well, I don't even feel comfortable giving the one.
I felt so much better at 2.5.
I almost wanted this to be straight up. But I guess I'm out on an island. I am the only one I think Eric Evans' dad, I didn't see him officially take St. Louis, but he says it's St. Louis's year. So obviously he must be taking St. Louis. So Eric and I are going out on a limb. It may be
You got to give me credit, though. You got to give me credit. What I say before the season? What I say before the season?
You said
St. Louis and DC.
Yeah, and that's what I'm rolling with. I think St. Louis is going to pull out the win. The crowd is going to go home happy. So with that said, like I said before, I had the opportunity of going back to Iowa this last weekend, and I got a few pictures I brought back. Amanda, my daughter, went with us, and she got her hands on a pretty fancy camera for a really good price. So she, believe it or not, Eric credentialed her for the high school game that he coaches. So she was on the field and she was in the dugout taking pictures. So I just want to show a few of those pictures. I had so much stuff loaded in for this show that I didn't get them all, but I got a lot of them. But let's show a few of the pictures. So this is Eric addressing the team before the game. They were playing Spencer Tigers, which Spencer was a rival of mine when I was in high school baseball. So I knew all about the team. I knew them very well. But anyway, they come to town, and so there was a picture of Eric. Here's another one of Eric. getting the team ready to go. And then, oh yeah, I had to sneak in a picture of Big Daddy Ed in there. But you notice I'm wearing the Raptor shirt. I'm
Yeah.
representing. I'm representing. And then his brother Jake, my nephew, he helps Eric. He's the pitching coach, and he also is the first base coach. And then his youngest boy, Aiden, who is a sophomore, I believe. He pitches for him. In fact, he got the win last night against an arch rival, Aiden Mertu. He's plays the outfield. He pitches. He plays the infield. He's kind of a utility player. He plays wherever they need him. But then Blake's a senior. He's the one that graduated this year, and he got a scholarship to play baseball at Upper Iowa. This is Blake. He bats third, plays third, but he also pitches. And he got to pitch 2 or 3 innings the night that I was there. Here's another one of Blake up to bat. Right before I'm sure it was a base hit. And then Eric and Jake had their players on the sideline talking strategy before the inning started. And then probably the best pitcher of all, kind of a lost art in today's world. Before every game, the high school announces their starting lineup for both teams, and they stand on the baseline, and the national anthem plays with the flag in the background. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed that night. In fact, they're like I said, they won last night. I believe it was 8-6. And they're playing again tonight. God, they play every freaking night of the week. It's unreal. It's hard to believe they have enough pitchers to go around because they're all on pitch counts. And they play at least 4 or 5 games every week, every night of the week. But I had to share those. Amanda's got a ton of other pictures that we're going to be sharing with his team. So good luck, Eric. Hope you guys pull away another win tonight. What else do we got, Brett? Got any other parting shots?
No matter who you pull for this weekend, I would definitely recommend to watch both games. I wouldn't want to miss them. If you can devote your Sunday to the UFL, this would be one to do it.
Again, so I want to thank everybody for all the admins of the pages out there that allow us to post each and every week. Sure appreciate it. If you get a chance, go to our page, give us a like or a follow. Baby steps on YouTube. We're starting to make a few strides, aren't we, Brett? So
yeah, we got to push that more. We shall see. But UFL fans, isn't it great that we're going into the off season? We're 2 weeks away from the off season with zero worries about coming back next year. I mean, is that not the stability we've been looking for since 2019? I mean, I can't wait to see, what all happens in the offseason, changes they're going to make. And, Rapoli and the league's keeping us up to date. There's no 3 months or 4 months of darkness like in previous years. There's constantly something going on. And I would anticipate sooner than later the 10th team to be announced, just kind of like the Oklahoma City deal in 2028. I know he's constantly, talking to venues and potential venues, so I'm sure it's undecided at this point.
well, I hope that any news or any changes come out sooner rather than later. I know there's a lot of frustration out there when nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're able to get the venues all situated for next season so there's not a scheduling problem. But just like Brett said, everybody enjoy some great football on Sunday. I can't wait. The game's at 5. I'm going to be tailgating by 8 in the morning. So by the time the game comes, I'm going to be ready to go.
I would need a 3-hour nap before the game if I was out there at 8 in the morning.
So Eric, I don't know what time you're getting there, but get there early because we got some tailgating to do. With that said, everybody enjoy football on Sunday. Everybody, we will be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. We'll see you later.
And that's the bottom line.